This is Express Leads. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Express Leads. I'm your host, Paul Brady, and today we have Amy Lynn Thornton with us. She is a realtor with RE/MAX, Professional Association of Shrewsbury. And RE/MAX, as a member of that branch, she is a licensed real estate broker in Massachusetts and Connecticut with 13 years experience. And I'm guessing, Amy, your slogan is real person helping real people with real estate. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Paul. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I like your slogan. Did you come up with that yourself?
I did, and it kind of rings true to how I run my business and treat my clients, because people rarely buy or sell houses because they feel like it. They're doing it
Right.
because they have a life change or something, and that makes a huge difference when you can relate it down to what they're experiencing in their life and then translate that into a real estate transaction that makes sense for them.
Right. And so this must be along those lines, this must be a very interesting time to be a realtor because it seems like that the housing market is just absolutely insane. There's no inventory.
That is correct. It is when you say interesting, sometimes that means challenging, and
Yes.
sometimes that means profitable. But as real estate goes, real estate is constantly changing all the time. But right now we are in a very inventory starved market, which is making it difficult for some pockets of buyers, like first time home buyers who probably don't have a lot of assets to leverage, as well as your kind of more graduating, I call them graduating sellers, when they get to the point where they're looking to downsize. So they
Right.
see all the news and they could have all this equity, but there isn't any place for them to go.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mentioned to you before when we were chatting that I'm in a networking group, and so I talk to the real estate attorney in that group all the time, and as well as we have a property manager and some other folks, and everyone, pretty much universally says the same thing. You go to these closings, and there's like sometimes 24 offers on a house, including investors and all sorts of things that you don't see. And I've owned. I mean, in my life, I've owned three homes. I'm in my third home right now. So I bought and sold two previously, and I've never seen anything like this ever in my life. Have you ever seen anything close to this?
I have not, and I was a homeowner before I was a realtor. Pretty much as soon as I was out of college, my parents always stressed home ownership to me and the importance of it, as did my grandparents and stuff. So, in my life, I've owned probably close to 12 houses at this point.
Wow.
I also like to fix them up. I buy the sad house
So house flipping or
correct. Yeah.
wow, cool.
Yeah. But this, I went into this career full time in 2008, which was the crash. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and that was an easier market than this one because it was more predictable.
Yeah, that was a very tough time for a lot of homeowners, a lot of foreclosures, and yeah, the opposite of what's happening right now, right?
Correct. Correct.
So tell me a little bit more about your business. I know you've been in business for 13 years, and sounds like you have some interesting experiences that you bring to the position. What can you tell us about your business?
Okay, so I am with RE/MAX in Shrewsbury. I live in Sutton, so I'm completely local to central Massachusetts. I was born out more west of the state, and I've also lived out around Boston. So there really isn't an area that I don't know in Massachusetts. And I've stayed with the same office. I do not run a team. So I'm there every step of the way with my clients at every appointment. I see all the details, and have really enjoyed growing my business in this area, and helping families sort of move through their changes in their life. It's been a fantastic experience.
Sure. Wow. Yeah, and it's like I said, it's definitely a very, like you said, challenging, interesting, challenging, depending on your perspective. It's quite a phase we're going through right now with the real estate market. Are you concerned at all about anything that's going on with um, the federal government, the mortgage foreclosure
With
and
the
eviction
memorandum,
moratoriums
yeah,
ending?
where that's coming to an end.
Right.
I am concerned because, and actually, I was just talking to a new client last week that is in foreclosure. However, a lot of these houses that are in foreclosure, there's a lot of equity in them too. So unlike, in '08 where you were in foreclosure and you were underwater, if you're in foreclosure now, you probably can sell and get out of it without having to go through that foreclosure and damage your credit and such. It comes down to, as a homeowner and as a human, it comes down to admitting that you're in that position and sort of need to make those changes, and that can be very difficult to actually face.
Do you,
As,
do you
as
find people in those positions are reluctant to sell even though they're in foreclosure?
Correct, yes.
Wow.
So if you think about, and this is kind of where, real person helping real people, if you think about the mental emotional anxiety state that a person would be in when they start to get those foreclosure notices, and chances are there's something else that caused a person to go into foreclosure, be it a job loss or death of a spouse, medical issues. So you kind of compile all that into, then they get the foreclosure notice. And then emotionally, a lot of homeowners just stop. They just kind of like hit a wall because they're
Hmm.
not sure what to do, and they don't want to face it or admit it. It's embarrassing. They don't want to tell their friends, their family. So it
Yeah.
can be very difficult. But I just keep stressing that this could be a good thing. Change is hard. Change is always hard. But on the other side of it, you're going to be a lot better off.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean it's really interesting that I'd never considered that. Even though now that I hear you talking about it, it seems obvious, I never considered that there was a psychological aspect to foreclosure, and it totally makes sense. And you know, it's just the apprehension and, like you said, the freezing up and not wanting to do that stuff. Yeah, that totally makes sense, and not wanting people to know. And so selling is really, I mean, from what you're saying and from what I'm hearing, um, selling is really good option because it saves your credit. There's a lot of equity in your house. You probably make money on a sale, and then you can turn around and rent or do something else somewhere else or buy a smaller house without damaged credit.
correct, correct. And even though you're in foreclosure, which means the mortgage is in default, you'll recover much faster after that's paid off in full than if you have a foreclosure sitting on your credit report. And not just your credit, but future job employment. There's a lot of professions that are legally allowed to ask you if you've had a foreclosure.
So when
Um,
you say recover, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to ask you
yeah.
quickly. When you say recover more quickly, what is the distinction between a default and a foreclosure on a credit report? Because I'm assuming the way you said that, the default shows up in the credit report also.
Well, yeah, because if you have late payments, it'll still show that you had so
Oh,
many
right,
late
right, right,
payments. Right, so it still affects your credit score, but
right,
you're gonna recover a lot faster than if you just let it go to foreclosure.
right. Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's all about trying to regain control. I try to get them to see that in taking these steps, rather than feeling like life is spiraling out of their control, that they're actually gaining a piece of control back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, certainly that makes sense because um, people, yeah, like you said, people in that position, usually it's a very bad life event, like a medical bankruptcy or death,
Correct.
like you said, a death of a spouse, or any number of things can, unfortunately, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and it's just the reality of a large percentage of our populace. And so when you hit that bump in the road, um, you gotta, it's good to have someone like yourself on their side kind of advising them where to go from there. And I assume that you have your own set of other people you recommend, like real estate lawyers and people like that, that will help someone in a position like that as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, that's a team approach, and for sure, because it depending on what stage of the foreclosure process they're in, how much time do they have, what other funds do they have, because at some point they do have to leave the house to do a
Right,
sale. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces to it. Fortunately, I don't think we're going to see a lot of that in this market, even with the changes from the feds. And I know that the media does a great job at making real estate super dramatic. Um, and
no
in some
doubt.
cases it is, but it's not usually as dramatic as the media makes it out to be. So I don't think we're going to have that wave of foreclosures like they're saying as soon as that moratorium ends, because there's a lot of steps that happen before then that would sort of you know kind of ease that a little bit. I know investors would love to see it because that would open up some inventory in the market for them. But
Right,
yeah, I think we're going to continue on. We're seeing the market cool off a little bit right now, as it typically does in July, because that's the biggest vacation month out of the year.
right,
And given that last year no one could, so everyone is this year. So it's sort of cooling off some of those bidding wars in certain areas, and reducing that super accelerated increase in the pricing to a more normal level. So I think that's what we're gonna see for the rest of the summer, fall, and winter into next spring, is sort of just a very steady march forward with low inventory, but not crazy ridiculous pricing.
right, right. Okay. So let me switch gears here for a second. Ask a little bit about how you know how you find customers. I mean, where do you go to find clients online? How do you do that? Or
Yep, I
what?
have a couple of different, I do a couple of different things because there's no you can't rely on one thing, of course.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. I mean, obviously, my past clients, and my sphere of influence, so to speak, are the best sources because that's direct person to person referral. And I do maintain contact with nearly all of my past clients via some form of social media or email. I also participate in Zillow leads. So Zillow gives you an option of having a certain territory zip code, where you can get
Okay.
calls in. And then lately, I've really been pushing my Google business profile.
Oh, so you Google My Business? Yep. That's
Correct. Yep, and that's been fantastic. And then actually this week I'm launching a video series specifically aimed more at social media than say the Google business,
on YouTube.
YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Correct.
Okay. So since we're on the subject of social media, so it sounds like you have a YouTube, Instagram. Did you say Twitter? You said
I
Facebook.
think some of my stuff posts to Twitter, but I don't pay that much attention to it. I tend to focus more on Facebook business page, and my personal Facebook because again, I have all my past clients there. It's
Okay.
one of the best ways to sort of stay in front of them and also keep up to date on what they're doing too, which is kind of cool.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things I do tell people, about since we mentioned Facebook in particular, is that having a Facebook page and using a personal Facebook, those are great strategies. If you have anything where you've got masterminds or anything like that, having a private Facebook group where you can give people access to it that have paid to maybe join your mastermind, something like that. That's also good because you can build a community around whatever courseware that you're
Oh,
creating.
cool. Yeah.
So like you mentioned a video series. I don't know if that's paid or if it's free, but even if it's free, give people access to a private group, and then you've kind of got, you don't lose those people that come and look at your YouTube video, and then you may or may not have them if they're new or if they find it, through some of your other efforts on social media. So I talk about stuff like that a lot with people. That's something that I think is probably a pretty good idea. I don't know if you're familiar with anything like, well, obviously you're doing a podcast. Do you have a podcast or do you do anything like that?
I do not. The podcast is a new thing for me.
Okay, because I was going to say that you're, and this is a common theme for me when I talk to clients too, is it's the idea of repurposing content. So if you're recording videos on YouTube and you're recording videos and you're uploading them to YouTube and you're doing a series of videos and possibly uploading them to Facebook as well.
Hmm.
Those videos, the audio from those videos can be repurposed and used for a podcast. Now I know that some people will say, well, I'm talking about visuals and things like that. It's like, yeah, that's true, but there are more people than you would think. It's actually kind of surprising that do that. So um, I
Interesting.
see a lot of shows, a lot of political shows do that. I see a lot of marketing shows that do that. They'll repurpose that data and they'll even put in their podcast a link to the YouTube video. You know,
Very interesting.
um, so and some of them do it so much that they mention that while they're filming it for YouTube. They'll say, "Oh, if you're listening on the podcast, you can also see the video on YouTube. The link is in the description." That kind of thing. But it gives you content that you can repurpose and share. And the reason you do that is because not everyone will consume everything the same way. And I think it's a point you made earlier, a similar point. So people that love YouTube might not like podcasting or care about it. And people that love podcasting may not be wild about Facebook or Clubhouse or Twitter, for instance,
Right. Yep.
So it's not a bad idea to cross pollinate a little bit. I did notice that you said you're really amping up your Google My Business for your local SEO. I think that's a fantastic idea. My wife I do all the, I don't really have a choice about it since I'm married to her, but I do the marketing for her business. She does a dog walking business and a pet sitting business. And we do Google My Business. And, she dominates in this area within a
Oh,
10-mile
fantastic.
radius of Worcester. So her business is Sally Wags Pet Services. And I always ask people, how did you find us when I'll help her? I do intakes for her as well. And someone will still say Google.
Oh,
And that's almost every single time someone will say Google. And as a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point where she was in East Brookfield the other day donating some dog food that we accidentally bought, the wrong kind, and we couldn't return it. So we said, you know what, let's donate it. So she was donating it, and she said, I have my own dog, walking business. And they said, oh, really? What is it? And they said, Sally Wax. Oh, we've heard of you.
oh,
That's in East Brookfield. So kudos to you for doing that because that's one of the main things I'll say for a realtor. And I always recommend is Google My Business. And a shocking number of people don't even have a presence or it's on there and they didn't even create it. So you have to be careful too because people come in and it's not exactly a very ethical thing to do, but I have seen, and not me, but I have heard of other people going off and basically trying to claim ownership or grab someone else's Google My Business because they figure most of the time people don't pay attention
correct. I've
and
heard
they'll
of that
grab it.
too. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I get a request recently where someone, and the funny thing is, the way they do it is terrible. For being such a super security minded company, if you don't answer, eventually they'll just
Give it
grant the
away.
request, and I'm
Yes.
like, that's terrible. So, but anyways, yeah. So I've done that, and I've gotten those requests, and I always deny them. I'm like, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you're trying to do, but no, you know. But Google's great. Social media. You've got your fingers in social media. I think that's awesome as well. Um, what for you in this, and maybe it's different because of the given market right now, Amy. But what do you think is an ideal client for you at this point in time, and why is that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, if I could create a dream client, my dream client right now would be a seller with a cul-de-sac colonial, center hall, 4 beds, 2.5 baths, 2-car garage, central AC, and a pool. Because that is exactly what's everybody wants right now. And they have a second home somewhere. So,
Why
maybe
is the second home important?
so they can move out of the house without having to buy something right away.
Oh, I see. Well, what about people that sell and they rent?
That there are some people like that. Rentals are actually very limited as well, even
Yeah.
more so than housing right now.
Yeah. Yep. No, I hear you.
So that
Absolutely.
can sometimes be somewhat challenging. But yeah, so a dream client would be a seller that has a second home or a vacation home, that they want to, just get rid of, the big house, take advantage of these great selling prices, and then sort of wait it out and figure out what they want to do down the line, but no rush. Um,
So
so
essentially, just two things, right? Probably a lot less headaches, but the other is you don't get stuck in a purchase and sale where it's contingent on the purchase of another home, and that other home never materializes.
Yep, that is tough, and I have a certain strategy with my sellers with that, because I do a lot of sell buys, to the industry term, selling and buying on the same day.
Right.
It's somewhat, it takes a lot of coordination, but I don't list their house until we've found something. So
Oh,
that
you mean until they found another house or a rental?
Correct. Yep. It's a little bit harder to get their offers accepted, but I actually set them up as if we are going to go on market that moment.
Right.
So I get all the professional pictures done. I have the Matterport done, the floor plan. I have the entire listing drafted so that when I am presenting their offer to the other agent, I can include that and they can see exactly what we're going to do. What price point, what the house looks like. And we all know everything sells. So it's just a matter of, I click post in MLS and then they're live.
Okay. Yeah. And so you mentioned professional photographs, and that kind of brings me to another question, about people that you consider to be, in businesses that, and I say partners, I don't mean literally partners. I just mean figuratively partners that could benefit you. So, for instance, a photographer, a home stager, a real estate attorney, a property manager. Are those people that generally are people that you partner with, and are there others?
Yep, those are all huge players in my world, as well as mortgage brokers, uh, banks. I mean, even just sometimes for some sellers taking out a home equity line of credit because those rates are super low too, give
Right.
them the ability to purchase something for cash and then sell their home. So that gives them some options. So house cleaners. I'm always looking for good house cleaners because they don't tend to go outside of certain areas. Like, maybe, one person only does houses in Worcester, or another person won't go to Sutton, those type of things. Um, Clean out crews, so movers, and, say it's an older home or an estate home and no one's been in the garage in 10 years and they need to get that emptied.
Right.
And home inspectors and septic inspectors. Those are both actually anyone in construction because those people are so hard to get a hold of right now too because they're so busy. So your contractors, your electricians, your plumbers, your HVACs. The
Right.
real estate
Wow.
touches so many different professions.
And you have connections with all those people.
Yes, yes, and they come and go depending on people's availability and territory too. If you have an electrician that's really super great, and he or she is super busy, and they live in Medway, they're probably not interested in seeing a client in Worcester. You know what I mean? So I work with a lot of different people because it tends to be very schedule based and location based.
Right. Right. So, as far as so moving past the potential partners view, I'm thinking about going back to when you were talking about clients and prospects and how you get them and all that. So once you do get people, right?
hmm
Um, you know, how do you typically reach out to people like that on social media, or do you have email lists? Do you have a newsletter? Is it just social media? I mean, how do you do that, and how regular is your contact?
So I do have an email list, and this is it. I run my business based on my personality, and this goes back to like the real person. I don't do the canned email newsletters. Partially, every realtor does, so that's not all that different, and most of them come from the same source. If you're working with an agent out of any of our offices, you're getting the same email newsletter that Remax provides us. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, new leads coming in, especially from the internet, I pick the phone right up and call, or I do a quick video on my phone.
Hmm.
If it's a blind lead, an internet lead, they may or may not have even looked at my picture. So I can do a quick video, hey, Steve, thanks for reaching out. I got the email that you're interested in 123 Main Street. Let me know when a good time to talk is, or shoot me a text. So
Right.
I'll either pick up the phone or do the video call. In terms of past clients, and I'm glad you brought up partnerships, because those people are incredibly important as a referral source as well. I do a couple of different things throughout the year, and I try to keep it kind of community based. So there was a Boy Scout troop that was selling mini first aid kits, and
Okay.
they had a bunch the extra that were for pets. So it's like a mini first aid kit for your dog or cat.
Hmm.
And so they were raising money for something they were doing in town. So I bought 100 and stuck a sticker on it with my contact information, and then literally just went down my list of past clients who I know have pets and drove around for a couple of days and dropped them off first aid kits.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's actually really, really smart.
Yep. So and
Um,
it's very organic for me. I don't plan these things. I more sort of look for the opportunities that fall in line with my client base and again my own personality, because then it's 100% genuine.
so how big would you say your email list is?
It's close to, if I include partnerships and cooperating realtors, which also includes, realtors in other states,
Hmm.
because a lot of us refer business, back and forth across the country, and especially between Massachusetts and Florida. It's
Right.
probably close to 1,400 solid contacts.
So what if you were just to limit it to prospects and past clients?
Then I'm probably closer to 5 to 600.
Okay. Um, and I know you use Zillow leads. Are there any other online methods you use to try and get leads?
Upnest, which is sort of it's for home sellers and buyers, where they can pre-screen a realtor in their area before deciding if they want to reach out. And then when
Okay.
they do reach out, you answer a series of questions that almost creates a proposal.
Right.
And then the client, once they view the proposal, then they can open it up to interviewing agents, and then you can actually get connected with the client. And I'm also part of the Homes for Heroes program, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But
I think so. It sounds familiar.
so it's a nationwide not for profit, and what they do is they use realtors and mortgage brokers by area to service our heroes, so our active and retired military and all of our first responders, so police, fire, EMS, as well as educators and medical workers.
Right.
And the agents and the mortgage brokers, when they work with a hero, at the close of the transaction, we make a donation on behalf of the hero to the not for profit. A piece of that goes to fund like some of their larger efforts, which is scholarships, temporary housing. If there's like an event like the firefighters in the West Coast, like if they need temp housing, they might fund something like that. And then the other piece of it goes back to the hero.
Okay.
So that's internet driven and lead driven. And they do a lot of the advertising to reach those people as well. But that's a really good lead source.
Okay. So you use services mostly, things that are similar to something like Thumbtack. So Upnest and Homes for Heroes and Zillow, those are all services it's almost like a pay per lead, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Um,
But
okay.
not a pay to get maybe a lead. So I
Right.
don't subscribe to, a monthly fee and we'll send you people.
Right, right. No, yeah, exactly. I just meant that in general, it's not the same as creating your own lead magnet and having something out there that people want to know about and having them,
Correct.
Do you work with a lot of veterans?
I do.
Because
I do.
I noticed you mentioned Home for Heroes and retired, but I don't know if that not all veterans are retired.
Nope, not all veterans are retired. A lot of them are active. Vet and active military. They move around a lot. Um,
Right.
it
But
time
even
and time.
people like anyone that's in any of the National Guards or the reserves,
Correct.
you have to be in for 20 years, and not everyone does that. So their status is still veteran, but they're not necessarily retired, if you understand what I mean. In other words, they might have done a 10-year or a 6-year enlistment. And then when their enlistment's up, they didn't reenlist. So they're still considered a veteran as long as they are honorably discharged, but they're not retired. They don't get retirement benefits from the Army or the Air Force or whatever.
Yes. Yes,
Um,
that's correct. Yep.
okay. And you work with them as well. Okay.
Absolutely. And in fact, right before we jumped on this call, I got a call that I could move the closing date up. I have a sell by where we sold and we did a rent back from the buyers so my sellers could remain in the house. And I just found out we could move up their purchase. And he is currently active Air Force. So they're a Homes for Heroes client, which is
So
fantastic.
do you find in the current you said something that was interesting. Do you find in the current environment that people are more that buyers are more flexible about a rent back?
They are, and it's one of the best ways for a first time home buyer to get their offer accepted because it's giving the seller essentially as much flexibility as you possibly can. So in other words, you can sell your house, you can get your money, and then you can stay there for up to 60 days while you
Yeah.
figure out what you're doing or moving out or whatever you need the money for.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So what? Let me jump to something that I was curious about, and after listening to uh, several of the things that you've said over the period of our conversation here, I'm just wondering when you talk to these different people, and I'm mostly referring to clients
Mhm.
and prospects. What do you think are the top three questions you hear from people on a regular basis? It's the type of stuff you hear every single time you talk to someone.
So is the market really that bad? That's I hear that from buyers. Is it really that bad? How much am I going to overpay? And is it even possible? That's from the buyer side. From the seller side, um, you know, how quickly can you sell the house? How much is it going to cost me? And can you help me find some place to go?
Yeah. Okay. Now, outside of this, before imagine before we hit this crazy bubble that we're in right now, what would be your answer to that same question?
On the buyer side, it would be, can I afford a house with a two-car garage? I want to move closer to my mother. Is that possible? And do you know anything about interest rates? And then,
You got you one of your top three questions before the market went crazy was whether they could afford to buy a house near their mother.
yes, yes,
That's a common question.
it is. It is. Um,
That's a little weird. That's kind of strange.
yes and no. It has to do with, typically the parents have the more expensive house
Yeah.
and first time home buyers or people coming back into the neighborhood, maybe they have a kid or two, so it's
Oh, yeah, yeah. They want the parents to. Yeah, I see. You
right.
know what? That isn't a weird question. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
At first I was thinking, well, maybe the answer, maybe that's not weird because they're asking because maybe they're planning on possibly helping to take care of their parents if they're elderly. But really, it's something I see every day. My neighbor has his son lives behind him in a house
Mhm.
in the other street, and he takes care of his kids all the time.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, before the
It
pandemic,
happens
he
a
did.
lot.
Okay, interesting. Um, okay, because I was thinking about and the reason I ask you this question was that I'm thinking about the number of leads that you're getting. It doesn't seem like if you have about 500 to 600 people on your mailing list right now,
Hmm.
and I don't know the exact time period it took to grow that mailing list. I'm assuming if you've got Zillow leads, you got Homes for Heroes and Upnest and stuff like that. Um, the people that end up on your list are only people that aren't necessarily prospects. I'm assuming they're people that are clients,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. So, um, well, there's two questions there, I guess. So if you're excluding the prospects, I'm assuming you're excluding them because for whatever reason, um, even though they expressed interest, they're not likely to buy or sell a home. Is that correct?
Not correct. So they're not necessarily in my contacts,
Hmm.
in terms of that. And this is probably one of my largest downfalls, in my own marketing, because I do tend to be very organic about it. Is that those people probably should be in some type of
Yeah, I
just
was going to say that.
paid mailing list. Yes.
Yeah, because you could. I mean, potentials are always potentials in my mind, and if you can, like you said, if you can market to them as prospects, they may not buy now, but maybe they know someone. Maybe they're ready in a year from now. Maybe they're ready in 2 weeks from now. I mean, you just don't know.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I do, so I think and just kind of looking at from a 10,000 foot level, your marketing efforts. I think you're on the right track in a lot of ways. I mean, Google My Business is very, very important for realtors. I always recommend that realtors have that because it's a local, you're in a local area. You're definitely a service-based business according to Google My Business. And so you're servicing different areas. There's nothing better than doing that than Google and getting you those leads. However, there's also other ways that you can get leads. And one of the things I tell people that even though it seems surprising to hear this, that ebooks are very highly converting. So if you have something, and I'm the reason I asked you your top three questions, I was trying to find out what people ask you all the time that would be interesting enough that you could put in an ebook. And because if a majority of people ask you those same questions, you could maybe even expand on it and say, okay, what's the top 9 questions I have? Let me think about this and rack my brain. And you create an ebook based on that. You drop an ebook on a landing page, and someone comes in and from a Facebook ad, and the Facebook ad says, learn today and I'll just say the top three reasons, why will buy a house, the top three methods for buying a house in this market or something like that, something related to the questions, right? And so
Yeah.
people, if you're hitting something that interests most people that come into your ecosphere, then anything you create is a lead, and they call it a lead magnet. In this case, the ebook should be addressing a problem that your clients are experiencing all the time, or questions they ask all the time. So you put something like that out there, people click on it, they come to your landing page, and on the landing page it's just a simple form. It's like, get the ebook today, give me your email, click this button, and then they get sent an email with a link to the ebook off of Google Drive or something, right?
Okay.
But when they do that, you have their email address, and now you can start sending them targeted emails that you write, about you, probably introducing yourself first. And that's something that I don't know how familiar you are with some of the marketing concepts of people like Russell Brunson or Tony Robbins or Gary
Yes.
Vaynerchuk or some of those guys.
Yep.
But getting someone on your mailing list and then introducing yourself to them is like the first thing you do. So you do something that, like Brunson calls a soap. It's based on Seinfeld. Seinfeld. There's two things. There's a Seinfeld list and a soap opera list sequence. And the soap opera sequence is really you just telling people, hey, my name's Amy, and I'm a realtor. I have 13 years experience. And, you go through the same formula, except it's different for each person. It's got kind of a similar framework, but it's different because each person has their own life story and their own profession, right?
Correct.
But
Yep.
the idea is that the simplest way to put it is if you walk into a networking event at a chamber of commerce or a BNI or something, um, or just a party where you're mingling with folks, you don't walk right up to someone and say, "Hey, buy a house or sell your house." I'm the person you want to talk to if that happens. No,
Correct. Yep.
instead you have a conversation. It's natural. I'm Amy. Oh, I'm John. What do you do? I'm a lawyer. Oh, I'm a realtor. Are you a real estate lawyer? Yeah, I am. That's a natural conversation. That's kind of what the soap opera sequence is about.
Hmm.
You just don't hit someone up with a sales thing because they're going to unsubscribe from your list.
Correct.
But you kind of introduce yourself so that people know you over a period of like 5 emails or so. And then they had this follow up thing called the Seinfeld email list where you just write, and it's very organic. So it might probably be something that would be, right up your alley. As far as uh, doing something that's real and not fake, right? So the Seinfeld thing is based on it's the joke is it's an email list based on nothing, right? It's kind of like the Seinfeld show, a show based on about nothing, right?
Correct.
But the thing is, you're always talking about something. Like I did one not that long ago where and it's a daily email. You send them out daily. Just do an email, and you can schedule them. You can do a bunch if you don't want to. Like when you have 2 or 3 hours spare time, or even an hour, depends on how long the emails are. You can write several and schedule them. You don't have to do them like every single day. You can schedule it out and kind of when you have time. But
Right.
the email is just I was in the shower the other day, and it occurred to me that I'd forgotten this unbelievable thing. I forgot I left the something on the stove on, and I was all panicked. And so it's just these like little weird real life stories that you kind of mix in to your business, your ecosphere. Where you're either trying to provide value, because sometimes it's about just sending someone to a YouTube video you did that provides value. They don't have to pay for anything. There's no obligation. They just look at it. Other things are, and you might have a passive call to action where either on YouTube or on the email on the bottom where you don't really call it out, but it says, if you want to make an appointment with me today, click here to go to Calendly or Square Up or whatever you use for a calendar app.
Hmm.
Um, and it might be a direct offer. It's like, hey, I was thinking today, my brother-in-law is trying to find a house, and the craziest thing, he went through 14 different places, and it's so hard. And I know as a realtor, this and this and this, but if you're running into an issue like this, feel free to contact me. Something maybe a little slicker than that, but this is all off the top of my head. But
Right.
but
Interesting.
these are ways to get leads, though, Amy. I mean, people. The first part is you're giving them something of value that they want the answer to, or that they really want to know about. And it can be different niches too, by the way. You can have different offers. You can have one that you target on Facebook or Google just to veterans and say, are you a National Guard member of the National Guard or Reserves that completed your enlistment? Question mark. Then hey, you can get you may not know it, but you're eligible for a VA loan. Talk to
Right.
me or do this. And have people come in and you talk about how you can pair them up with people because you're not a mortgage person, right?
Correct.
But you're a realtor, and so the idea is you get them into your world. You talk to the your mortgage broker or your bank, and they set them up with that. But in the meantime, they're talking to you. You have their attention, and they're on your list. And if they're asking about a mortgage, a VA mortgage, then they're probably thinking about buying.
Buying a home. Correct.
Right, right. So these are because having 500 or 600 emails, I mean, I'll give you a quick example. I did one for a nonprofit, which was an economic nonprofit, which to an untargeted audience, right? Not in that niche, probably isn't all that exciting. Um, but we have over 1,000 people on that list, and that list is not nearly as um, wouldn't be as nearly as successful as a lead gen list, like I discussed with you about a lead magnet of some type. And the reason for that is that we wanted people to join our list that were very, very this particular client that were very motivated and interested in what we did. So instead of putting a quote unquote paywall where they have to give me their email to get something.
Hmm.
Instead, I did an advertisement on Google that sends them to a blog post that's something they're interested in. So the ad's about, let's say, livable wage and the economics of a livable wage and how do we change that. So we send them to a blog post where within the blog post there's embedded form, but they can totally read the blog post and just go on there with their day and not subscribe.
Okay.
And we get 1,000 people to subscribe doing that.
Awesome.
Um, if I had done a lead magnet, I probably would have gotten 10,000 people doing that.
That's incredible, Paul.
So, well, it's just the economies of scale too. We spend money on the advertising to get people to go there. But the point is that there's a reason for that, and that's a whole different thing. I'm not recommending you do. That's just when you really want highly engaged people, then you want the people that are interested enough that they read the article and then they give you their email because they don't have to. In this case, I'd be recommending that you actually have a quote unquote paywall of sorts where you give them something they really want, but they have to give you their email for it. And then the good news is they're on your mailing list. And this is what we discussed earlier, Amy. Once they're on your mailing list, maybe they're not ready to buy, but maybe they know someone. Maybe they're going to buy in 6 months. And I always tell people, it's funny, I had this conversation with more than one client where it's like, well, I've had these clients on here. I feel like I should just clean them out. They never respond to anything. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Never, never, never do that. Never take people off your mailing list. The thing about a mailing list is, unless they have unless it's a bounced email, which your mailing list software you'll be able to figure out who's bouncing and who isn't, right? That's
Quickly, yeah.
different. You definitely remove those. But someone that's on there and they're getting your emails, but they haven't unsubscribed, always let them be the ones that unsubscribe because you just don't know when they're
Yeah.
going to act on something.
Yeah, when life changes. Yep.
Yeah,
It makes
exactly.
total sense. Makes total sense.
Yeah, and it's funny too because even on a quicker, like for I do a lot with gyms as well, and so when you're working with a gym, it's usually a 7-day email campaign, and and then from there, it's if they want to do more, they can do more. A lot of times, to be honest, they don't. So, but the reason you do 7 days is that when people see something from a business, it generally speaking takes them 3 to 7 times to act on a brand or an offer. So people miss the boat when they send out a single email, like they blast out an email to a list of 5,000 people saying, hey, we're doing this today. Yeah, you know what? Because if you're like me, I see things sometimes and I go, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm interested in that. And then, one
Forget
of the
about it.
kids is crying, the dog's barking, there's a UPS guy at the door. So you grab it and then you forget about it. But then 2 days later or a day later, you get another email from them and you're on your way out the door and you say, oh, I got to remember to get back to them.
Right.
And then eventually you might get to the point where it's like, okay, you're sitting and drinking coffee on Saturday and you see this email. It's like, oh, right. I'm going to take the time to respond now. I mean, sometimes it's that. And sometimes it's literally people are like, meh, I don't know about this. And the more they read, the more they become familiar with your brand or your product or your service. And they're saying, well, maybe I will, it's just an email. Maybe I'll see if I can get more details on this. Or maybe they see an offer they like better in a later email,
Right.
like a YouTube video,
Yep.
you know?
But they've recognized you at that point.
Right. So I would say that you're doing a lot of really good things, Amy. But the one weakness I'd see here is your. I mean, I know people that listen to my podcast are probably sick of me saying this, but the money is in the list, and things like YouTube, and and it's an extreme example, but I say this to people all the time. If you have these huge followings on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, well, what happens if they all go away? You got no more following. They're gone, right? Because
Right.
you don't have their email, you don't have their information. You chat, you interact with them on there, but and that's the difference between traffic, borrowed traffic, and traffic that you own, right?
Mhm.
So when you're doing ads and stuff, you're generating traffic. And so when people do ads that direct them to, like someone told me the other day that they paid for ads to direct people to a website and it wasn't a form or anything. And I'm like, well, you're wasting your money. Maybe they'll buy from you, but you're giving them one shot to buy from you. That's it. But when you direct them to a landing page that's not on your website, which is important, you don't want to do it on your website. There's too many distractions. But
Mhm.
when you do it to a landing page where it's just a simple form, they can do one thing and one thing, well, two things only. Either they give the email and click submit, or they just close the form.
Right.
But on a website, they can go somewhere else. They can be distracted. But they weren't even going to a contact form. They were just going straight to a website. And I'm like, well, no, you want to capture their email so that you can continue to email them because they may not be comfortable enough the first time. So That's like my main recommendation for you, Amy, is that just to try and build up your email list and definitely keep more of the prospects if you can from your other sources as well. And I don't know how they work. Maybe they don't allow you to do that unless they become clients.
Oh, no,
Uh,
they do. Again, it's just been how I've tended to run my marketing, and just maintaining that list as opposed to I tend to probably pay more attention to my clients on a day-to-day basis than trying to find new ones, and, there's a balance in there somewhere. I'm working on it. It's
right.
been 13 years. I got another 13 to go.
No, no, it's all good. I think overall you're doing very good. I just one thing I will say, just that really interested me early on, was you have this experience flipping houses, and that's the kind of, and I know this maybe isn't something you want to do, but I'll just throw it out there. That's the kind of thing where you can create an online course, and the course is just based on video modules where you're just recording and use something like ClickFunnels, or you use Kajabi or something like that, right? Where you
Mhm.
can easily set up a membership area. And what you do is you have people sign up, and maybe you do a lead magnet for something, and then when they get that, then they're sent to a different, so you're doing a little funnel stacking here. So that simple lead magnet I was talking about, that was just a funnel, a two-page funnel, right?
Okay.
But now let's say that you're doing a different thing where you're talking about, hey, learn about the top 7 secrets I have, or the top 7 mistakes to avoid in house flipping, right? And so they grab this, they give you their email, and then they get the ebook because they go to a thank you page and there's a button they can click to get it. But when they do that, there's something else that says, where you're sending them, something called next step or something where, most people will click it. And so what they do is now they go into a sales funnel. And in the sales funnel, you got a video where you say, thanks for downloading my ebook. You might be interested in my course on this and this and this, right? And so, you charge them whatever you want to charge for a course, depending on how much work you put into it. Probably if you do something small, you might want to start out with something like, you know, um, a $47 or a $27 thing that's smaller, but then you could upsell them to the advanced course, which is the course that has everything you do. And that's maybe 297 or 397, right?
Interesting.
But it's all done online. And so if you get to a point where you find the right niche and the right, through Facebook or Google, or even solo ads in that case, where you just rent someone's mailing list, and like through Udimi, or through I forget the other one. There's another one that, traffic. I forget traffic for that. I can't remember the name. Sorry,
It's okay.
but those are targeted for people that want to make money online, and there's also targeting for real estate on there as well. So you go out there and you say, well, now instead of trying to cull through the people in Facebook or Google that are may or may not be interested in real estate, now I've got a list that I know is focused on, making money um, online, or making money. And so something like that, it's a pay-per-click thing. You get people to come in, and then they start getting your emails, and they go through, because if they don't click that next step in the lead gen funnel to go to the sales funnel,
Hmm.
they're still going to get emails, and those emails are going to do what? Try and put them back on the path of the funnel stack, get them into the next funnel. So when you do that, everything's handled online. So
Interesting.
people come in, they pay online. It's I've done that with clients before. It's a lot of fun doing that. But anyways, I know it's maybe a little off topic, but when you said you did house flipping, that's the kind of, and I tell everyone in my networking group, every single person here has domain knowledge. You know,
Yeah.
Everyone does. Even if you're doing a 9 to 5 job right now where you're selling insurance, you have domain knowledge where you can sit down. If you've been doing it for, 13 or 15 years, you've got some serious knowledge. You can sit there and address the most common questions you've had for 13 years from hundreds of clients, and make something that maybe people will look at and say, oh, this is interesting. Or even have it as an onboarding thing that doesn't cost anything for prospective clients to come in and learn more about you and your business. So it's cool. It's an interesting way to, it's an evergreen way to make money. By that I mean that once it's set up, you're not doing. the emails, you set everything up all up front, and people come in, the emails get sent to them through email campaigns. And if they decide to go all the way through your funnel, they
Then
pay online. You don't
right.
even interact. And then they get access automatically to the course, and they go in and start looking at the course. And each day can have different a video and different things they could download for worksheets or something like that. It all depends on how you design it, but
And
that's one way you can go off and do that. I'm actually meeting with someone later this week to do that for her coaching business. The almost the exact same model.
oh, excellent.
Yeah. So, anyways, just a thought, because when you said that, I thought, boy, I hate to see money on the table, you know.
And
So
that, yes, house flipping is one of those like super attractive ideas that people like to learn about and sort of poke around at.
yeah, I mean, I know a real estate lawyer. You're the third person now I know, in a short period of time, I know that's doing this now or has done it. So I know a real estate lawyer that he just is a recent real estate lawyer, and like just graduated and got and passed the bar and all that stuff, and he's already bought 3 homes, one for himself, and he's flipped 2 others.
Nice.
A property manager I know got his start in life flipping houses and doing that. Now he owns a bunch of properties himself that he manages, as well as ones for clients. So yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting. It would be kind of difficult right now to do house flipping.
Yes,
This might not be the right time,
correct.
but you and I both know the market's going to come back to more normalization at some point.
Absolutely. It changes all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so before we wrap up, 2 things. I just wanted to ask you, how do people contact you? What's the best way that people listening to our podcast can reach out to you and contact you?
Yes, absolutely. So my cell, either call or text 617-899-2146, or shoot me an email, Amy Mullen at remax.net, AMYMULLEN at remax.net.
That's excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And did you have any other questions for me, or?
No, this was fantastic. I
Awesome.
appreciate the opportunity, and really, I've been taking notes throughout this entire time.
Oh, awesome. Well, you can always reach out to me anytime you want. And I just want to let you know I super appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with everyone today. So thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
This has been Express Leads, hosted by Paul Brady of Brady Consulting and Inbound Marketing. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave us a voice message by visiting anchor.fm/expressleads. Thank you.